All right, welcome everybody to the 2022 May edition of 15 Minutes to BIM. I'm your host, Adam Simmons, BIM specialist at Unify Labs. Unify Labs is the global leader in cloud-based BIM content data management. Our essential data platform delivers a better BIM experiences by helping users like you navigate the dark BIM. Today, we're talking about puzzles. Just kidding, but it sure feels like a puzzle sometimes. We're talking about content audits. I love questions, so please feel free to use the Q&A tool. Scott Scheipel, our Director of Customer Success, will assist me in fielding all questions following the presentation. So let's jump in today. Content audits. When it comes to content, there's always a few pieces that you really want to know to pull this together. You got to have the right pieces. You got to have content that fits well with what you're doing and something that most importantly completes the picture of that project. What brings it all together and actually works with all those pieces. So I want to talk today a little bit about that and some of the options or solutions that we've come up with here at Unify in order to look at content audited. I want to know what's your strategy. If you guys have any tips or ideas as we go along, feel free to type some of that in the chat there as well. Curious to hear what you do for content audits. So the first piece here, the right pieces. You know, when it comes to content, we're collecting content from all over the place. I remember my days in BIM management, from small to large, it always ends up with a collection of something that might be going on at a company level for content library efforts to really build something together, pulling from past projects, whether that's officially or unofficially, user collections and stashes of content left and right, and of course, manufacturer and client-based content, things we don't really have a whole lot of control over in some of those areas. So getting our pieces can really come from all these different walks, if you will, intents. All these things are not really aligned for the one thing that you're trying to do. So let's talk about not only the right pieces that we're trying to get, but the proper fit. And the first thing that I would ask whenever I think about content, and it probably crosses your mind, is it good content? What do we usually mean by that? We want to know if it's slow or if it's unstable. Those are two key pieces. The first sort of bar to pass is, you know, what's the file size? Is there a ton of nesting in this thing that just makes it complicated and hard to use or hard to work on? Are there formulas that cause performance issues, CAD imports that bloat and cause all kinds of corruptions and other fun issues? And then the third and final piece here that I mentioned is really looking at that content in a consistent manner to say, hey, how does this complete the picture of the work that we're trying to do? Is it consistent with other content like it? You know, does it have the same kind of types? If I open up and load a series of casework into my project, am I going to get one cabinet that works with a series of types that is inconsistent with the other, or one that has instance parameters for width and one that has type parameters? Am I going to get parameter names and values that, you know, one's in, been written up in a certain set of units, one in another? All these kinds of things are different ways that we're looking at content, trying to say, hey, this isn't easy to use, it's not consistent to understand. And then we have another area here that starts to look at the visibility, the subcategories, like being able to understand, is this content actually working with my project? Is it showing what needs to be shown about that content? Does the shared parameter side of things here actually make it schedulable and work with my schedules in my project? So there's a lot of pieces that come together here to make a good set of content. And what I want to talk about now is what Unify can do to help you pull a content audit together. Now, recently we just revamped our content audit, and it includes 9 pages of report here. What we do is we collect all the information on the content that you have uploaded in your Unify library. We index it. We go through each and every file. We pull all kinds of information that's useful and helpful out of it. And then we don't just dump a big stack of data in front of you, but we actually try to sort this puzzle out. We put it in some interactive dashboards in Power BI. We make it simple for you across 9 different pages here to be able to see a report that's going to focus on a lot of these pieces that we just talked about. Things like imported CAD files and the file size, nested families, shared parameters, and the list goes on here. Lots of different content options to look at. One of the things here I'll do is we'll jump into a live version of this and actually see a sample here. You guys can all check this out too through our Knowledge Center on our Unify Labs website. And when you come in and check this out, you'll see that there is the ability here to first have an overview. So this is a report here of some libraries we have. And first thing at the top is that we get a nice clear picture with some indicators by color of some recommendations that we have. Things that we find are those performance hits, those things that cause issues, all those things we just talked about. And if you'll watch up there, I have ways down here to filter this into looking at specific sets of information. So let's bring this down to, let's say, content less than 3 megabytes here. You can see my max file size is reporting live for me based on my filters, but we're going to get different colors here based on that content fitting a special category here of recommended sizes. Okay, and we're going to do that for all of these based on information that we've seen across the industry that has become pretty standard for people to see and want to see in their content. Also helps to find out that their content has the right kind of performance and everything that they need and expect out of it. So overview page here, first of all, has some quick ways to say like, hey, what is the makeup of my architecture library? I can see that there's a lot of generic models, detail items, doors, windows, and it gets smaller after there, right? If I want to see also, let's say a structural library I have set up, you can see there's mainly 3 items here that's in the structural library. And in comparison, I might even set up and unify an unapproved library, things that, you know, hey, we haven't got time to vet every piece of content, and I know that there's good stashes of stuff out there. So let's put it together in a place that everybody can use, and I can have some oversight over it as a BIM manager. And so when I look at that content, I can also see, hey, look, there's lots of content people are contributing here that probably aren't part of our library or don't meet what we need for our library, a little bit of both here. So these might be areas they begin to look in. For this case, looks like I have a lot of people that really need some more detail items. Maybe if I'm a BIM manager, I might focus my efforts on looking at some of these items here and digging into what detail items we add to our company. Along with this report, we mentioned some of these others. I'm just going to touch on a few highlighted ones that we talked about already. Things like imported CAD and file size. So here's a quick way that we can begin to see what's going on across my content here in imported CAD. I can see there's 3 pieces of furniture here that I might want to focus on first and see, okay, imported CAD, I've got 3 families here that I could go in and check out. I can even see that one of those is a pretty large family here that I probably want to make sure that one doesn't make it out into the wild, maybe pull it out and give it a good cleanup. The other thing I can see is files over 1,500 kilobytes here, or a 1.5 megabyte file. I also get a top 10 list here, and all of this is interactive. So if I want to see anything about these items, quickly click on any of these charts, and you're going to get a drill down here into that individual area and be able to very quickly identify a series of content that you want to take a look at. Let's jump to one more final thing here. We've got things like nested families, types and parameters where you can look at consistency like we were talking about, even parameter value QA. You want to make sure that certain content has certain values in it. You can see that in this report and even be able to pull out Excel spreadsheets from this in any kind of filtering orientation that you have set up and pull that down for your own personal uses, manipulations, and so forth. And we'll look at formulas so that you can see formula links, things like that as well. as the subcategories. So finding out if you're really populating a ton of stuff into your project that's not helpful, or if in general, things that need to be on a certain visibility so you can control them all consistently are easy ways to drill through there. And the final one here that I want to touch on more specifically is looking at shared parameters. Because I know, and you know, if you've done anything with Revit and shared parameters, that having the right parameters, the right content, aligned with the right schedule, always seems to be some kind of headache. And in this way, you can see across your content, see that, hey, there's only 8% of all of my shared parameters out of my shared parameters file being used in all of my content. And I can also see what those unused shared parameters are, search through there to find out what's going on. Another good thing here is I can look for matches of shared parameter GUIDs because some of these shared parameters might not be my company shared parameters. And if I want to see specifically if there's any clashes I should be concerned about, I can look for shared parameters that don't match in name, but do match in GUID. And this is going to be able to tell me really quickly, like, hey, here's 4 shared parameters that are going to clash with parameters that you have in your shared parameter file. Maybe these are what I go after first. I can see there's 69 items here that I can start to dig through in my content, get that cleaned up. There's 4 items for this one here. So easily I can begin to make some quick decisions about how to focus my efforts on getting my content cleaned up in an impactful way. So just want to pull this together for you guys and let you see a sneak peek here of the new format that we're working with on content audits. And just give you that quick understanding of what all that comprises and how you can begin to look at this content in a holistic manner and really be able to focus your efforts in a way that's helpful to you. And with that, we have one final piece here, and that's just to point out that all of this information that you saw today is also going to be available on our Knowledge Center, along with a guide that walks you through all the particulars of our content audit and the sample that you just saw. If you want to poke around and see what all that's about, if you think it can help you, you can find that on our Knowledge Center here. And with that, I just want to say, as always, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We hope we made your journey with content audits just a little bit more insightful to take your content management to the next level. If you'd like any additional tips or tricks, check out our knowledge base, where we'll have this webinar on demand, as I mentioned before. And you can also reach out to us in the ways listed on screen here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Scott for our Q&A.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Adam. So it looks like we have 2 questions. The first of which is, what's the typical turnaround time to completion?
Yes, so for the content audit, you would submit a request for that. As long as you've got your content ready to go, it's usually about a two-week turnaround time for us to index all the information, get the reports pulled together, and schedule a call with you to actually start looking at that report with you, helping you understand what's there and what kind of things you might want to focus on first.
Okay, great. And number 2, how often do you recommend content audits are completed?
That's a good question. I think that one can vary depending on the growth of your library, how often you get new content or you're building new content, making changes. It's always a great idea when you're getting started with Unify to get a content audit going. You get all your content in there, you can get a first look at everything, get an understanding of what's going on there. But I would think somewhere in the annual, biannual range is probably typical for most people to be able to say, hey, we've got a new batch of content that we've made since last year or this year. And you also get an idea of looking at content when it comes to new features and different aspects like that with each year of Revit.
Perfect. Sounds good. All right, everyone, thanks for joining. As you guys can see on Adam's screen, we will talk with everyone else during our next session, which is on June 8th at 11 Pacific, 2 Eastern. Until then, have a great rest of the day and take care. Thanks.